Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm Sarah Watt.
And I'm William Chen.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective, with some connection. They could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. This month we are discussing Triangle of Sadness, which came out at the end of last year / start of this year to capitalise on the awards season buzz, and Triangle, which came out in 2009. The connection being that they are both writer-director films set at sea, as well as having the word triangle in the title.
We're pretty basic.
We're simple people here at Cinema in Context. And just to let you know, we will be spoilering both films. So if you haven't seen these movies, I would suggest pausing this episode and coming back to it at a future date.
I would say especially for these two movies, because boy, are there stuff to be spoiled in these.
Yes,
absolutely.
And spoiler alert, listeners, we recommend both films, so it's not like we're about to slag off a film and then force you to watch it.
This is true. Yeah. So I guess if you're not a spoiler person, then jump in and listen, and maybe decide if you'll watch the films after we talk about it, which I know some of our listeners do. I've talked to a few people that have done that. But if not, yeah. Let's rejoin, let's reconvene, let's come back together at a future date. All right, let's hear about Triangle of Sadness. William, give us a bit of an introduction about this 2022 film.
Righty-ho, Triangle of Sadness, the latest from writer-director Ruben Östlund, is about a young couple who are both models and their adventures on a cruise ship. The end.
Okay, all right.
Nice.
There's so much stuff that happens that you start off in a place that is almost unrecognizable from where you finish up.
That's so true.
Just, I guess, the spoiler, we've already given a spoiler warning. I always want to say that this is a film, this movie's like White Lotus meets, and I always want to say Lord of the Flies, but to say that gives away the whole third act of this film, the final part of this film.
Sure.
Right, Sarah, Triangle.
Okay, so Triangle is a film I hadn't even heard of, but typically husband had it on Blu-ray at home. Triangle is a 2009 film by writer-director Christopher Smith, who had hitherto made other films with just one word, Creep and Severance. Now, Christopher Smith is British. The cast is actually, interestingly, even though they're playing Americans and pretending to be sort of in the Florida area, the cast includes Melissa George, Liam Hemsworth, and a New Zealand actor who I think is terrific and whose name escapes me, which is
Michael Dorman.
There we go, thank you. Michael Dorman, Kiwi actor. So they're Antipodean actors, all playing Americans. Anyway, basically it's about a group of young people who go out for the day sailing, and then very, very strange things happen. The end.
Or is it?
That's right. Well, that's true.
Yeah, nice.
Much to say.
I want to jump in with that because I was watching Triangle for the first time. William, you suggested it.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about the movie.
Can I just say thank you so much for taking up the suggestion?
Yeah.
Because I've loved Triangle since the first day I saw it.
Oh,
it's such a odd little, I guess, low budget horror film.
Yes.
That is not really a horror film, right? It becomes something completely different, which is a time loop, one of those Groundhog Day things.
Yes.
But then
cleverer.
I think it's clever. It has a lot of layers to it, as the way time loop stories go, and how the movie leads you, the audience, through the entirety of the narrative as it literally loops on itself again and again and again until it does again, is, I think, marvelous.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. For me, the thing that stood out in terms of the Australian cast or New Zealand cast was I was watching going, I think these are Australians because the accents are a bit hokey, and I was thinking, okay, so then I looked up where they filmed it. Yeah, they filmed it around Queensland. And,
Yes.
Brisbane.
You can see some of the Gold Coast in the background.
Yeah, right.
But also, do you remember when we did our Megan episode and I said, not unkindly, that something that was distracting for me was that it was set in Portland, Oregon, but that it looked like New Zealand because of the light. And the minute that Triangle started, it felt far too bright, far too Antipodean. But to be fair, I did know that Melissa George and Liam Hemsworth were Australian. I thought their acting, all of them, was really good. And you say low budget horror, William, and I think that's an absolutely fair comparison. But I was quite blown away by how solid as the performances were, in my view.
There's also that lady, hang on, Rachel Kapani from McLeod's Daughters.
Oh.
So she was one of the, before I knew who Liam Hemsworth was, she was like, oh, right, it's her and Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I guess.
Oh, right. Is Melissa George Sabrina? What?
Yes, she was live action Sabrina, right?
Oh.
Wait, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she was.
I think of Melissa just as not just as, but a Home and Away or what are those those Australian soap operas?
Neighbours.
You know, well, she's one of those.
Which
who
Sabrina are you
definitely
talking
went
about?
on to films.
The live action one from the 90s?
No,
Was
that's Melissa. No.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come back to that, but no, fair enough. Fair enough.
Apologies if I'm mistaken.
I thought Melissa George was really good. I think it's quite funny when you see Liam Hemsworth, and we all look.
I'm sorry, it's not Melissa.
Yeah, it's Melissa. What's her name? Melissa. Do you know Sabrina the Teenage Witch from the 90s? Do you have that?
I do not.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up right now. Sorry.
And I'll just talk while you look it up. I was just going to comment on dear old Liam Hemsworth. Dear old Liam Hemsworth, of course, whose brother, he has two acting brothers, but one of them is excessively famous and quite wonderful, I think. And I know that Liam, I guess subsequent to 2009, in the Blu-ray special features, they're talking to Liam and he's like, oh, I was kind of nervous and, it was a big deal and it was like, wow. And you think, goodness me, what a down-to-earth little newbie. And of course he did, what was it, Divergent or one of those?
Oh yeah.
One of those young people.
No, it was Hunger Games, right? Wasn't he?
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was in Hunger Games.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so he made it a bit bigger.
Melissa Joan Hart.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no. Okay, well, anyway, there aren't that many. Melissa, anyway. So, Triangle, yeah.
I just want to agree with you about Liam Hemsworth, and he doesn't look very Liam Hemsworthy because he's got a shaved
doesn't.
head.
But doesn't look like Chris.
I couldn't help compare it to Cabin in the Woods.
The same.
Because we talked about that recently, right?
That's right.
And that feels, while it's a bigger budget, it has that kind of low budget feel to it.
Yes,
as
it does.
well.
And there's always the 5 characters, and there are always 3 chaps and 2 girls, and so on. And that because that's what happens, obviously, in Triangle once they get rid of innocuous.
Oh, she was quite cool.
I thought she was nice too.
I really thought that when she looped back around, we were going to see her talk to Melissa.
Yeah.
Was it Melissa?
Jess.
No, the one that disappears. Is it Melissa? Oh gosh, we look it up.
I think we're really winning. She's not Sally. It doesn't matter because she's only a bit person. How mean, Sarah.
Heather.
Yeah.
So she's just Sally's good-looking friend.
Yeah, and because she kind of has some heart towards Jess, and she's sort of pushing back on Sally's judgment of her at the start of the film. And I was like, "What?" And they had that. Do they have a conversation down in the base of the boat?
Yes.
I'm really good with boat names
You
as well.
are. Base of the boat before they put the big material on the stick and sail.
What's that? What do they call that thing where they use it for sailing? No, I just think that she seemed to me to be a significant character that had a relationship. And I was like, oh, she's going to tell her that she needs to jump off the boat and go and get help or something. But no, that didn't happen.
Then she gets washed away.
Yeah, well, she's just dead, isn't she?
Yeah.
We never see her again.
That's right.
Yeah. My question with this film, in terms of logic,
Yes.
is
What the heck?
no, why? So it's played off that she doesn't know what's going on. Is it like a convenient amnesia? Is it like a C3PO?
When she goes to sleep on the boat at the beginning, she wakes up and she's suffering from a migraine, and she doesn't quite know where or when she is.
But also, she wakes up from a flashback or a flash forward
of when she was last restarting the cycle.
That's right. Like Tom Cruise
with the crabs on the beach
in Edge of Tomorrow, except that Tom Cruise in Edge of Tomorrow wakes up every time knowing what he's done before. And every time he wakes up, he gets the chance, obviously, to improve on the last cycle and live because the monster's not going to get him or because he knows what the game of cards is or whatever. Whereas
her existence is a paradox, isn't it? Because she kills her actual self, and so we never see her actual self. Never goes on the boat because she's always going back and being that person. Mm-hmm. You know, there's no it's like the.
Do you mean there's no one true Jess, or there is a one true Jess?
It's a Jess that is enclosed in her own time loop.
Yeah.
That doesn't incorporate the original Jess that you see at the very beginning of the movie.
because the one that is slapping the boy and we find out he's abusing her son, she never goes on the ship because she gets killed. So the Jess that's on the ship is always just like there's a paradox there.
Yeah.
Have we lost you, Sarah?
Oh look! The minute you say time loop, you've lost me. To be fair, and I really love these films because I find them impenetrable. So we don't have to spend a podcast trying to get me to understand time because I really struggle with physics. Is it physics? I don't know. But
we'll look at you, William.
we always look at William because he's the science teacher and he kind of knows the difference between those three sciences. So that's cool. Or I'm just happy with crazy. That's my kind of response to things.
I think again going back to what we were saying in the introduction, my favorite thing about both Triangle and Triangle of Sadness is how both movies progress and become things that they're definitely not at the beginning of the movie. Right? It really feels like a journey on a boat for both these films. And I think for Triangle specifically, again, you go and you see the cover, it's Melissa George with an axe, reflected on a pool of blood, and you're like, okay, so it's probably a slasher movie on an abandoned cruise ship.
Like Dead Calm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But no.
And it is until it's not. Until you realize that all the, dead meat, are dead by, minute 40?
Yeah.
And there's still, more than half the movie to go.
Yeah.
You're wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
What's going on?
The one of the most horrifying scenes for me was when the Auburn-haired Sally goes out and sees all the dead Sallys. And I thought that is genius because it's horrific. Not only must it be horrific to see all your dead selves, but also to realize in that moment the futility because they all got out there and thought they were going to live and none of them did, therefore why on earth would she? Yeah. And I just thought, wow, psychologically that is incredibly clever.
And that scene is A, a gut punch, and B, I think just stylistically done so well because you see seagulls are a motif throughout. You see the flurry of seagulls lift from the corpses and you see what the horror is.
Yes.
Amazing stuff. And on rewatch, also done on a budget, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So when I thought this was so funny when Jess walks by and she, there's POV shots from her point of view looking at the corpses. There's
Which
always
corpses?
Sally's corpses.
Yes.
There's always one corpse with her face up, like the actual actor, and 2 or 3 corpses with their faces down, as in the dummies that they were using to film their shots. So really efficient filmmaking. Awesome stuff. And then, of course, the wide shots, they just CGI her face on because the camera's not moving and it's cheaper to do so.
Wow, that's good to
Awesome
know. Yeah,
stuff.
for 2009.
Yeah.
Because I think we take that sort of thing for granted nowadays because we know that you can mock up any old thing. Yeah. But of course you didn't necessarily 13, 14 years ago.
I do kind of wish the movie had a little bit of budget or a little bit more of a budget to play with. Because I don't know about you guys, but some of the effect shots are pretty chintzy.
Yeah.
The water, the boat being overturned.
The dead, any shot of a body going into water, or a body being in water, or the yacht being in water.
Yeah.
In fact, even the shot of them waving is like,
the repeated one where
it
looks just superimposed on blue screen.
Yeah.
And the stormy part where the yacht is going underwater and everything, suddenly, and I said out loud, because we're watching it at home and you're allowed to talk through the movie if you're watching it at home. But not when you're in the cinema, guys. And I said, and now we're on the lot, in the tank. And sure enough, when we watched the making of, yes, of course they are.
Yeah.
But it did feel a little bit like that, didn't it? So that wasn't.
I think though, like that, looking back, kind of gives it a little bit of that direct-to-DVD charm as well.
Yeah, I actually appreciated it. I was like, oh, and then I was like, actually, you know what? They're really just trying to do something fun.
Yes.
There's something that there is a quality about this that is quite endearing. I think it's that direct to DVD charm you talk about, William. Interestingly, making the connection to Triangle of Sadness, there is that structural similarity as well, in that you've got the sort of on-land suburban storyline, or in the case of Triangle of Sadness, sort of in a hotel.
Yeah.
You've got the on-ship storyline. You've got the on-island storyline. There's some really good connections here, which it's a cool
It's
connection.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like these two completely different movies, different everything.
Yes.
Tone, motifs, theme, and yet like they both are called Triangle. I guess because they're both related to the Bermuda Triangle.
I think that's what they're trying to get at, right? It's
Yes.
this idea of
Strange. No. So do you know what Triangle of Sadness means?
Oh yeah, but I think it's
Let's
kind of a
tell our
double
listeners.
entendre, right?
Let's tell
triple
our
entendre.
listeners, though.
Oh right, it would be
Well,
a
it
triple
is a
entendre.
triangle, isn't it?
So
Yes.
the Triangle of Sadness, which is, I think, a terrific name, because yes, there are many meanings to it, and you can infer many meanings from it. But the as you obviously well know, I didn't know until I looked it up. A triangle of sadness is plastic surgeons speak for that. What do we call this? The part between the eyebrows,
Yeah.
just at the top of the nose.
We call it the
under
triangle of
brow.
sadness.
Well, we do now. That is usually the place where you get your wrinkles. None of us do, obviously, but other people get wrinkles, and that's where plastic surgery happens to make you look eternally young. So how beautiful that that we start with the male model scene. Can I just say, I have been brutally unkind about Harris Dickinson in the past. I first saw him properly in The King's Man.
Me too.
And I thought, what a no mark. I was like, I don't care about you. I thought you're not good looking. I don't mean that people have to be, don't get me wrong, but I mean, we just had Taron Egerton and,
And I mean, Rafe Fiennes, the
Right.
star of that movie.
Right, and so therefore, I was like, Harris Dickinson, what a no mark. He's really average, he's a bit posh, and he's not even that good looking, and he's got no charisma. Well, how wrong was I? Because in the opening scene of Triangle of Sadness, I just thought that was absolutely genius. The scripting is so on the nose, where the photographer's like the two different types of...
H&M.
That's
Yeah.
right, the two different types of photo shoots you might be on, and the fact that the camera it's a long one take, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're watching Harris Dickinson switch effortlessly from H&M face to Gucci face to whatever,
Yeah.
back and forth. Loved him, and in that moment I thought, oh, I like you. You've got a sense of humour and a bit of panache. And suddenly he did seem better looking. Not that that matters. You don't have to be good looking, but I'm just saying, I could suspend my disbelief that he was a male model.
Well, according to the movie, you do have to be good looking because
Yeah.
it gets you all sorts of stuff
Well,
in life.
it gets you a free cruise, and then everything's just fine.
You know that they talk about the triangle of sadness in the opening scene. You're saying you looked it up, but did you pick that up?
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
good question.
they
Did
mention
they?
the name of the movie and the opening scene.
Yeah, when he's in the audition,
Yeah.
he says something about one of the people behind the desk says the triangle of sadness.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so listeners,
Good
Sarah
point.
and I we went along to see this film at a preview screening.
Oh wait, I did. I wrote Triangle of Sadness between eyes.
Yeah. Well, and you
But
laugh
maybe-
like that because I did giggle.
But maybe
giggled.
I didn't know it was a real thing.
Right.
And then I looked it up and I was like, it legit is a real thing.
Yeah.
It's the Ron Howard.
Not just a Ruben Östlund thing. Sorry.
I was just going to say it's the Ron Howard from Arrested Development. Hey, that's the name of the show.
So Sarah and I, we went and saw this at a preview screening at Newmarket, and with a glass of wine.
Yeah.
With sort of a few other critical
That's right,
eyes.
critical eyes.
And there was a lot of laughter in the cinema. I was laughing a lot. During the scene, the kind of poster scene where they're all vomiting and pooing and sliding around the boat and things are exploding, literally, and also in terms of plumbing. Yes, metaphorical plumbing and literal plumbing. I was so sort of shocked, and I knew it was coming because we'd sort of been pre-warned by
Well,
it.
I hadn't properly looked at the poster, so you said to me, didn't you notice there was a picture of a woman throwing up?
Oh, maybe it's the thumbnail of the YouTube trailer.
Might be.
She's having the golden vomit.
And I hadn't really thought about it.
It's kind of glorious and so gross. And I know how you are with scatological stuff, Sarah,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, this is going to be interesting. And the woman serving us wine or checking us off on the list as we came in, she sort of said that, didn't she?
She said, drink the wine, and because there'll be a moment when you want to put it down and not eat or drink anything again, or something like that.
She said, there'll be a moment where you want to put your wine glass down, and then very shortly after that, you'll want to pick it back up again.
Oh, okay.
Which
She
I thought
said
was quite
far
a
more
wonderful...
eloquently. Yes, that's right. That's nice.
But I was laughing and shocked and trying to pull myself back into my chair as much as possible. And by the time that poor woman is vomiting and pooing at the same time.
Can we stop using the P word?
Well-
I don't like scatological humour.
Well, I mean, it's better than the other word in my head.
I know. But yes, she is. She's exhuming from all...
Yes, she is evicting her
Yeah,
bowels.
right. Yeah, okay, yeah.
But also, I said to Sarah, because she's the one that makes the whole the crew go for a swim, which is so horrifically horrible.
Hoisted by your
making
own
that-
petard.
That's right.
Exactly. So she goes for the swim that she
Yeah.
wants, doesn't she? But in
Yeah.
her own excrement.
Also, it's because she does that the food goes off in the first place.
Exactly.
That's the only reason, is because it makes them have to come up and leave
the
the food.
octopus.
That's
yeah,
right.
it's great. Well, also it's both
Yeah.
the motion sickness and the food going off, isn't it?
So obviously it's worth explicitly saying something that we all know by now, which is Triangle of Sadness is a skewering, not just of the wankery of high fashion, but are we allowed to say, well, I've said it now.
I think wankery is
Yeah.
suitably
we did
non-explicit.
say poo. So.
Yeah, could we not? But also, basically just the hierarchy of those who have and those who have less and those who have not and all that sort of thing. So
In politics, you've got that wonderful ongoing discussion between
the oligarch
Yeah.
and Woody Harrelson's so-called Marxist.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting? I mean, look, I shouldn't say that like this is a genius thought at all. But yes, notably, in Act 2 of this 3-act Greek tragedy, as I like to describe it, in Act 2, it's the rich woman who says, I insist that all the crew go for a swim, ergo the food goes off. But then, interestingly, it's not the crew who get really sick. It's only the rich people.
Yeah.
And not Woody Harrelson, because he was smart enough to order a
Burger
a
and fries.
hamburger
Burger and fries.
instead.
That's right.
That's right.
It's brilliant because in that whole sequence where she's making that poor young woman, we've
Oh
already
my
been
gosh.
prepped with that scene
Yeah.
of the not the captain, the head steward, whatever her name is. She, you must say yes.
Miss Paula, yeah.
It's just wonderful because you're like this poor young woman's dilemma. She has to say yes, but
it's all on her face, and the camera holds on her face.
yeah. And I love as well that juxtaposition of the white crew above with the people of color crew, the cleaners below. Like
Invariably Filipinos.
Yeah.
And Daisy, have you got the name for the kid? Dolly De Leon, who plays the wonderful sort of head...
Abigail.
Yes.
Yes.
The head cleaner below. She's Filipina.
Yes.
And and I have actually been on a cruise ship, guys. But obviously don't go now. Wouldn't go now. Obviously, not since COVID.
Prices are cheapest.
That's right, but no. But it is always Scandinavian officers and invariably captain and Scandinavian above. What do they call it? Above deck crew and below deck crew being marginally exploited often.
Yeah, because their
Filipino.
pay is based on they're not beholden to any actual
Tax laws and
or
things.
country laws, and so usually the Filipino crew or people from Southeast Asia get paid terribly. Our friends, and I won't say their names, but we've got mutual friends that have done cruise ships in the past, and they would hang out with the crew, and they've said to me that they felt very uncomfortable when they learned what their fellow crew members were getting paid. They were being paid as entertainment.
Oh yes, that's right.
And the crew members were
Getting considerably less.
a third, a quarter, a tenth of the pay.
Incidentally, it is worth saying, and I think it's on Neon. There's a very short feature-length documentary called The Last Cruise, and it's about the cruise that went down by COVID.
They were stuck in the harbour for ages, was it?
Yes, and it's horrific because there's sneaky footage from below deck, and it sort of, well, obviously it shows how all of the people on board are treated, and once again, of course, the passengers who are all complaining because they're locked in their lovely cabins and they're not allowed out, and the food came and the tomatoes were really limp in the sandwich.
Don't want
and
bad
things
tomatoes.
like that. Whereas meanwhile, the crew are downstairs, maybe unmasked, catching COVID like anything, trying not to test themselves so that they don't get it, because if they get it and they have to isolate, they won't get paid, and so on and so forth. So I mean, it's a dreadful slice of real life. So that's highly worth watching.
Yeah.
The Last Cruise.
I think it brings into question the just the ethics of cruise ships as well. If that's the way that they are able to offer such reasonable prices because they're pretty well priced, those cruise ships, for what you get.
And for all-inclusives, which means you get your booze as well. Apparently you put on, I know this isn't a cruise episode, but anyway, but here we are.
Yeah.
So apparently you put on 0.5 kilogram every day that you're on a cruise ship on an all-inclusive, because it's impossible unless you've got ridiculous... Well, it's also impossible to have the willpower to say, no, let's not go for a high tea at 3 o'clock, because you can. And then have an ice cream at 4, and then go for cocktails at 6. I speak from experience. Honestly, I got to do this with the Sunday Star Times a little over 10 years ago, and I got to do a 5-night cruise from Auckland to Wellington. It was all-inclusive. I wrote a glowing article. And I will say that one of the complications of being on a cruise, and I say this less now from experience, but just from what we all understand, and it's highlighted in Triangle of Sadness, when the crew are having their meeting and is it Paula who's the head, the sort of the maîtresse d' or whatever?
Brilliant performance, by the way.
She's amazing.
Just immaculate.
And when she says, you say yes to everything and you smile, human nature dictates, doesn't it, that our guilt about being the rich people or the posh people or the lucky people is assuaged, because if the staff around us are smiling and look happy and tell us that yes, they like this job, then you think, oh, well, that's all right, I can relax a little because they're okay and I'm okay too. But that isn't necessarily the truth, necessarily.
And then that whole scene's capped off with a further pitch. Money.
Which part are you talking about?
The crew, when they're having their briefing, and then they end up like being like wild animals, jumping up and down and screaming about money. And that's the point where I realized, oh, this movie is not going to be subtle.
No, yeah.
Which we'll flip to Triangle in a little bit, but can I bring up that point in that Ruben Östlund?
Yes.
I haven't seen The Square.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have.
No, but we did consider
That's the one I've not seen.
we were going to pair it with this because of the whole shapes thing. Again, listeners, we're simple folk here at Cinema and
Was
Conversation.
either going to be the square or the circle?
Yeah, circle, triangle, yeah.
Or cube.
That's right.
Thin red line, maybe? No.
2 dimensions.
Yeah, so I changed the dimensions, yeah. 1 dimension, right? 2 dimensions.
Two.
Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wait, yeah. But anyway, with Ruben Östlund's, I mean, most people would be familiar with his first movie, Force Majeure. And I love Force Majeure, and I found that the more Triangle of Sadness went on, I kept wanting it to be more like Force Majeure.
Do you mean more subtle?
More subtle, and more about the relationships.
Yes.
Because Triangle of Sadness is a movie that goes places, and it goes there in big ways.
That's very true.
Whereas Force Majeure, and in some aspects, definitely Triangle of Sadness as well, it's all about interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. And it's still excruciating.
Oh my god, yes. I think my favourite scene in the whole thing, well, my 2 favourite scenes, one we've already brought up, which is the rich Russian woman telling the crew to go for a swim, and the look of horror on her face. But of course, the scene where it just goes on forever, where the main characters, so Carl and Yaya, in the restaurant, they talk about paying the bill.
Brilliant!
They get on the taxi or the Uber, and the conversation continues.
Yes!
They get to their hotel, they're in the elevator, it just keeps going on.
Yes.
And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And he's trying to open the elevator doors
that's brilliant.
Like the Terminator, yeah, that's right.
Brilliant. Was it you telling me, Sarah, that the camera pans
In the
back
taxi,
and forth,
so
and it gets closer and closer?
That's right. So in that taxi shot, it's really subtly, beautifully done, because you're right, Act 1 is considerably more subtle than Act 2 on the boat and Act 3 on the island. So Jeremy, it's amazing. So the camera obviously rigged just in the middle of the car, and it goes from an almost close-up on Carl, and then it pans across to Yaya, and then it comes back to Carl, and these are all pans, but they zoom ever so slightly, and then pan back to Yaya with a bit of a zoom, and then you realise that the camera's getting ever so closer, subtly, tiny bit closer to each face as that excruciating conversation continues.
It's so well written.
It's so well written.
filmed. It's so well acted, and the fact that it culminates in her and him coming together, and she admits that she was manipulating him, and he
Yes.
admits that he was maybe being a bit too, I don't know, obtuse with his... It's a great way of building relationship character and tension.
Yeah.
And then it pays off again when they're on the boat, and she checks out that guy on the deck, and then he gets fired.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
that's right. And I do like how the dialogue, and good old Ruben Östlund for his own script writing, because the dialogue is plausible. Because you might think, guy, dude, just pay the bill and shut up, or she should be more gracious, or no, because it actually escalates in a very, very plausible way. I'm happy to say not in a way that I would allow my own conversations to escalate, but you know what I mean? It's believable.
And that was that what you said right there was my favorite thing about Force Majeure. There's a scene in Force Majeure where two couples are just sitting there having a wine, and it is the most uncomfortable I think I've ever been at the movies.
Yes,
because
and it's plausible.
yes, the escalation goes to a place where it's like, no, don't show them the phone.
That's
don't,
right.
Don't do it.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
that's why I don't mind how heavy-handed parts of Triangle of Sadness is, because, like, third act aside, the conversations on the boat with these rich people are very real. Like, they're not like the satire is. It's barely exaggerated, because these are the real things that happen.
I think apart from one bit which really stuck out like a sore thumb to me, which was the weapons dealers, like that couple.
Yeah,
I was like, come on, movie.
Right.
Oh yes. The casualties cut at the price of our stocks. Oh,
That's right.
Like,
Classic
come on.
British sort of
and
accounting.
then they get killed by their own grenade.
I know,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. But I guess but also I know people like that talk about, maybe not weapons, but they do talk about concepts of property and privilege and wealth with no awareness of the people they've stepped over
That's
to
a very
get
good
there.
point.
So,
Yeah.
like, I do hear you that would be the more exaggerated end, but I don't know. Like, I've sat in some pretty horrible conversations with some older people that just no awareness of how they've got to where they've got to. I mean, I love the grenade moment. That was just wonderful.
And also,
it's one of ours.
and brilliant, because we get to laugh at the show. I've thought about the fact that really it's Schadenfreudian laughter on our point, on our part, isn't it? Because we get to pretend that we would never be so gross, or never be so ghastly, or never take a cruise, or never ... never sell weapons at the expense of the lives of poor people, or whatever it might be. But it's delightfully funny, which I was grateful for, because if it had all been grim, because I laughed less in Force Majeure. I really appreciated Force Majeure, which is the disintegration of a marriage and a family and all sorts, isn't it? Based on something incredibly subtle compared with this film, where the set pieces are not at all subtle. But really appreciated that. And
Can we talk about the third act, where
Yes.
the rise of Abigail?
Yes.
I did not see that coming.
No.
I did not know that the commentary about this, like as you say, Sarah, the hierarchy of class that's on the ship would result in her becoming the leader of the island.
well, it's the upturning of the triangle again, isn't
Oh,
it?
nice! I didn't pick that up. And just the way that Carl becomes her toy boy is so unexpected. And I guess the sexuality of the opening sequence. I think you turned and said something to me about, something, Sarah, when we were in the movie, about seeing all of this kind of half naked men on screen.
Well, I didn't realise when I invited you to come that there was going to be this fabulous opening scene of
Yeah.
all these good-looking semi-naked fellows.
Yeah.
But I think we both enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, and then it pays off in the best way, and
Yeah.
that she's they're rocking and rolling in that
lifeboat.
and I love that they keep it kind of mysterious for a long time, and we do see them being intimate later on
We
in
know
the sequence.
what's going on in there.
I know, but they could have just not shown it. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a shame
Oh, yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of the Abigail getting her piece.
That's
and
right,
It's
that's
quite
right.
lovely to see it later on.
And she's just paying him with crackers.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And how
Then you'll
everybody
sometimes
knows.
Yes, that's right. Well, that was almost the most absurd thing, is that everybody knows.
And everyone's like giving him crap about it. Like,
Yeah.
And he instigates it, right?
Yeah.
Carl instigates this. He's the one that starts looking over at her and starts flirting.
He looks over and he gets a look from her, and he reads that look, and almost in did I read that the right way? And he looks again, and she is super subtle. She is not like a cougar going, hey, hey, and doing the
I don't know if I agree with you. I feel like he looks over when she has that whole sequence with the octopus or something, and he instigates the flirting.
Oh, I took it
feel
that
like
she gave him a look and that he realizes pretty quickly,
Okay,
there's an
I need to watch it
opportunity
again.
here,
I need to
but
watch it
he's
again.
still on the back foot, which is also nice because he's used to not being on the back foot, right? He's used to being the guy or trying to be.
He's trying to be. That's the thing. Like, which also plays in beautifully with his character development through the entire movie.
That's true,
Because
actually.
It's all about, the balance
Proving
of our
himself.
relationship. And
Yes.
I need to be the man and, paying the money. I don't mind paying, but...
And then getting the dude fired. I mean, that's a
yeah.
pretty powerful and awful thing. Getting the crewman
But
fired.
of course, he didn't know he had that power
No.
until the guy was fired, and he's horrified.
Yes, he feels really awkward about that power. But anyway, getting back to Dolly
Yeah.
de Leon, do you notice, of course, in Act 2 when they're on the boat and they're sleeping in, and she knocks on the door, and she's like, not room service, housekeeping, and they're like, can you come back? And she's like, well, can I do it now? And they're like, no, can you come back later?
Oh,
And
that's
she's like,
her.
yes.
Oh.
So this is the funny thing. She is interrupting their intimacy in their bedroom, and then later on, she's the one in the bedroom of the lifeboat with the guy. And the others have to knock on the door
It's
to get
glorious.
in, and they up the opening on the lifeboat, and they're like, "Yes, what is it you want? You have to come out. You have to go. Okay, I'll be there in a minute." You know what I mean?
Oh, it's just wonderful.
And again, I just love how catty all the other survivors are.
Yes, but also how useless.
Yeah.
Isn't it genius how everyone's like, do you know how to light a fire? Do you?
Yeah.
No. And so Dolly de Leon, Abigail, is like, oh, for crying out loud, I'll do it then.
And of course, we have our going back to Lord of the Flies, the pig moment where it's a poor little donkey.
Oh.
And but there's this moment of bonding, and they're all crying together.
Yeah.
it's a masculinity
Yeah.
commentary, and the way that they tell the story when they come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the sequence when he's got his hand on her leg, or maybe further, and
Yeah.
there's just so many layers of
So many layers.
greatness.
And so leaping to the end of the film where you so desperately, well, I wanted them to get off the bloody island, and they get to this ludicrous kind of like service entrance.
Yeah.
Man with the golden gun.
Yeah.
Or that, I was thinking of Thunderbirds as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's
Tracy
like,
Charlie's
Island.
Angels.
they're
Yeah.
like this close. And then, of course, we read it. We read Abigail's face that she's like, the minute we step into that service elevator or whatever and be rescued, I lose everything.
Yeah.
I lose my power. I go back to the life I had before. And then how genius that she's approaching Yaya from behind. And then Yaya says, Abigail, I think I can help you. I would like to help you. And she pauses because she's like, well, hang on.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what the offer's going to be.
Yeah, and you're like, she's finally connected as humans.
And then she goes, you can come and work for me. And she's
Yeah.
like, no.
No, she doesn't. She considers working for her as a real possibility.
But for
because
like what?
that's when
For
so
like
you
for
see
a
it in her
couple of
face.
seconds.
No, you see it in her face, and then you don't see the resolution of that.
Well, you don't know what she's considering.
Yeah.
You don't know. I think she's
But-
considering killing her, right?
Well, no. There is that. For me, there was that flash of, well, actually, this could be a realistic way forward.
Really?
I totally read it as that.
But then doesn't she lower the...
She doesn't.
Then you don't see it.
You don't see
It
it.
cuts
But
to
we
him
hear
running.
it.
No,
You don't.
You don't see it.
happened. So why is Carl then running? Because what is he running to or from? And how does he know?
Again, it's a pretty weak ending. But
I just took it as that
he thought something was off.
I just think the point is that
He
you
realizes
think it's
they
going to
should
lead
have
to a
gone away
resolution.
together. Yeah.
It's going to lead to a resolution of their relationship. It doesn't. It leads to him in chaos, right? It's just
Yeah.
that's what I read
okay,
it as.
I
It's like he doesn't, and you don't know what he's running to. You don't know whether he's
Well, you
running
do
to.
because he's running from left to right. So we
But
know he's
what I mean
running
is-
to where Yaya and Abigail went.
But you don't know whether he's running to stop it, to be with Abigail, to be with Yaya, to escape. Like,
Yeah.
what is he running to? What is he
Okay.
going to do when he gets there?
I thought he was running because he suddenly thought, those two have gone off together. They've been gone a long time, and maybe he had had a realization that...
I mean, in terms of
It's
plot,
plausible.
absolutely.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in terms of the final moment of the movie, I quite liked it because it was no clarity as to
Yeah.
what he was going to, because he has no clarity because he's completely lost himself in this whole situation,
Yeah.
and he's. I mean, and just the irony that he's the one that's sleeping with another person when he's the
Yeah.
one that's been pulling. pulling down his girlfriend the whole time.
Okay, that makes more sense to me because when I was watching, I was like, wait, that's it? Oh, okay. Like it was such an abrupt cut to black, and then credits come up. It felt mighty unsatisfying. I would have preferred the movie to end again. It's like armchair critic, but like with the shot on Abigail's face, and then boom.
I mean, that is the best moment of the film for me. That is just that moment, her expression. And it's in the trailer, but it doesn't have the same impact without the story. It's
so you're saying
wonderful.
we don't know for sure what Abigail's decision
my
is?
interpretation was you don't.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, it's left with you wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty clear she's going to smack her in the head.
Is it though? Because again, to me, she hesitates, and I think that's what I found so awesome about the performance.
Yeah.
Because you see it in her eyes, you're just like.
I think I interpreted it
And that's a word. That is a word. Interpreted it.
As her pausing, letting that sink in for a moment with gall of, I can't believe that was going to be your offer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'd have to see oh my goodness, say her name right. Dolly DeLeon's face properly in that moment, which would mean having to sit through the whole film, which would mean having to sit through the whole of Act 2 and all the scatological humour, which, may I just say, was not as egregious as I normally find it. And I'll tell you for why. It felt like it was plot related in a way.
Sorry.
Well, is that an understatement?
No. It's just I guess that's where the line is drawn.
Just saying. I mean, okay. So I always go back to Bridesmaids, which I was a little bit harsh on because in Bridesmaids, just for the heck of it, just because they were trying to be like silly boy movies and have poo in it, and they were in a wedding dress shop, blah blah, and everyone loved it except me. But in this, it's definitely plot related because of what I said before about actually the crew are the ones who get away and they're all right without it, and it's punishment and so on. It's very just to get a little bit art history, it's very Bruegel or Hieronymus Bosch, isn't it? And it's kind of like
it becomes more and more and more so.
But also the rich people kind of like being purged and kind of being punished, and that poor woman in her tight fitting. I mean, she's an elderly, never mind middle-aged woman, and I understand what it is to be wearing underwear that holds you in and rolling around on the floor and all that, which I did think.
Her only salvation is that toilet.
Yes,
and she's trying to cling onto it.
I did think that they used a few too many shots there, but that's just my personal kind of thing. But anyway,
I tell you what, there was a relief for me when the ship did get blown up, because I was just so concerned about those carpets, and they were like, how are they ever going to get that out? And I just feel for it. I did really enjoy as well, on that same note, seeing the cleaners come in and clean all the vomit off the carpet, and just the highlighting of the work that they had to do to make it better.
So I love that, not because of the highlighting of the social injustice of the work they had to do to make it better, but because I hate mess, and I think we've discussed this a little. And so my husband will often.
Sorry, I'm thinking back to
mother.
our mother.
I knew you would be. And my husband will often sort of nudge me and go, "Are you feeling triggered?" In films where there's a lot of like people get muddy or dirty or they walk. Anyway, let's just not go there. So I felt relieved when they came out and they cleaned stuff up, because I felt, oh, thank goodness for that, because that was going to really prey on me.
What about the captain and the oligarch kind of taking over the microphone?
Oh, that was
terrifying. Like, the ship's going down. The ship's going down. I was like, cause a panic, why don't you?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I
wonderful.
normally don't enjoy scenes where people are ridiculously drunk or on drugs either, but actually that worked.
Yeah, that was heaps of fun. I think both actors really sell
yes.
it. Just that, not even tipsy, but drunk philosophizing.
Yeah,
but not, actually, starting off not understanding and then understanding and not caring.
Yeah,
that's broadcasting
right.
this argument to the entirety of the ship.
That's true.
So one of the question I have for you two is, well, first of all, I love who does and doesn't survive. It's just ruthless who does and doesn't survive.
Yeah.
But the guy who is accused of being a pirate and claims to be someone on the ship. Have we ever confirmed? He sort of jokingly talks about his pirate career, but is that true, or was he?
I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's the point, right?
Yeah.
They get to a point where they're actually just connecting as people.
That's right. Yeah. I think he was a pirate, except actually his language was exceptional. So therefore, maybe he wasn't. But I did initially think that he was.
There's also the lady who can via stroke can only speak one German phrase.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that was the best like black comedy throughout the whole thing.
The fact that she can't alert the guy to "we need your help."
But equally, she is complicit in the sort of biscuit gate or whatever it is.
Yes,
that's right.
And they never give up that she's part of it, and she never gives up. It's so sneaky. And what about the part where what's her name, Paula? She whispers to Abigail, "I think they should be punished." And she's the one that first really stands up to Abigail, isn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
It is so good.
Speaking of punishment, you guys, let's kind of teeter back, if you will, to Triangle, because I really, really like the allegory of the movie.
Please do tell me, because my only thought about it was it's not as blatant in terms of who we're punishing and why.
It's still pretty. I mean, they pretty much spell it out, right? Aeolus, that was the father of Sisyphus.
I understand the mechanism. The whole kind of we're going to relive and relive and relive and relive.
Specifically,
but why
punishing Jess.
Oh, right. Yes.
For abusing her son,
and that's it, really.
Yeah, that's it, right? And she's going through this this metaphysical, psychological, and physical torture in order to undo something that she cannot undo. Right? Like hurting her son.
That's right.
She can't take that back.
No.
And that kind of manifests in her son getting killed, and the whole shebang with killing her friends and acquaintances, and again going back to point A, because there's no way of taking it back.
And she keeps saying, this isn't me, that's not me, this is me, this is the mother, this is your mother, this is not your mother, this is the real Jess, she says it to the people on the ship as well, and that's quite wonderful, really. And I guess that's where the paradox works from a narrative perspective, in that it isn't her.
Yeah, she
kills the real Jess.
Yeah.
And we don't know where that Jess comes from.
But we don't know where maybe we don't have time for this, but do we know when the real Jess dies?
She gets sledgehammered to death.
In her house.
At the very end of the movie.
Got you. Yes.
Real Jess
doesn't actually turn up in the movie at all.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, so real Jess grows up, has a child, slaps him, is in her house, and then gets killed by another version of herself.
Yes.
The version of Jess we follow is always in that time loop. She doesn't ever come from anywhere, and just like the keys. She drops the keys.
Yeah, that's
she gets
clever,
given the keys.
It? That's clever.
You never know where the keys come from.
She picks one up, she drops it, she has one that's already been dropped. And
Yes.
it's 3 keys forever in motion.
Oh, so it's like the Prestige.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
It is. Did you remember when we did the Prestige? And there's and at the end...
Have we ever done the Prestige? I don't think we've ever done the Prestige. I'd love to do the Prestige for something.
And at the end, he's got the... sorry, listeners. Well, anyway.
Spoilers for the Prestige.
No, but the Prestige, there's no paradox in the Prestige.
No.
He just keeps creating new versions of himself.
But it's cyclic in that way.
Yeah, but there are also all the black hats and that sort of thing. Do you remember? This film reminded me very much of Triangle did, of Memento and Chris Nolan, full stop. So the whole way through, I'm like Christopher Smith, Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Smith is straight up said that Memento was one of the influences.
Right.
Which is really, really cool. Also, Jacob's Ladder, he said, was an influence.
I haven't seen that since the university days, and I wouldn't remember.
But yeah, I just thought that the thematics of a horror movie it's quite extraordinary. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but again, this is my third time watching it, and I did feel it pretty poignant. The whole thing about like her love for her son kind of driving her to commit these heinous acts, and at the end of the day, it means nothing because she's already done something unforgivable.
Do you think she died in the car crash at the end?
That's a good question.
Because I thought she was a ghost.
That's a very good question.
That would mean that she is in limbo. That would mean from a spiritual or a religious perspective, or she's in hell.
She doesn't have any scratches on her.
Right. So she's there, and the man behind her
is the ferryman.
Yeah,
right?
It's Charles.
But do you mean across the River Styx?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Because
I'm just a driver.
Right, and he looks ghostly. So I actually thought, has she died? And is he a ghost from the netherworld who's like, well, do you want me to drop you anywhere? And because they both looked quite ghostly, and he says no one's bringing that child back, which I thought, well, no actual person says that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess,
That's
yes.
a very good point.
I think
I haven't even thought about that.
it's a good theory, but I mean, also she had already killed herself in that storyline, right?
Yeah.
So,
and before then, she'd have already seen all the dead seagulls as well.
Yeah.
Which means
Yes!
that
Oh! I knew that
loop
was happening.
Had already happened multiple
Many times.
already. Yeah.
And like with the locket, many times.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
futility.
And Sally.
So that's the thing, sometimes I think, and we're running out of time here, but let's talk about heaven and hell. No. But technically, if there is a hell, then absolutely, apart from it also being other people, there is absolutely this idea that if you just had to relive a dreadful thing over and over and over for infinity, that's pretty compelling.
well, thank you, William, for suggesting Triangle.
Oh, well, thank you guys for going along with that. Again, I think it's a really underseen movie. And it does so many cool things that not many movies even try.
Yeah, and that's great. And hopefully we brought it to a whole lot of listeners who would never have heard of it, just like I hadn't, and therefore they'll give it a go.
And I think it's very rare that you and I would not have ever really known much about a film.
Not at all. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoyed our podcast, consider signing up to our Patreon. Cinema in Context patrons receive access to exclusive minisodes, opportunities for one-on-one discussions about the films you love, and our extended episode catalogue, including extended content of the episode you're listening to right now. I just want to point out that our most recent minisode was a discussion with Doug, Sarah's husband, about the New Zealand Film Commission. It's a wonderful chat. If you are interested in kind of the history of New Zealand film, I highly suggest
And
jumping
the
on.
mechanics behind the scenes, hey, and getting
Yeah.
films made in this country.
And he's quite candid about the names and personalities, many of his friends that are in the industry. So yeah, if you're interested in New Zealand film, I highly suggest jumping on and listening to that minisode. It's a great listen. Find out more at patreon.com/cinema in context. You can listen to Cinema in Context on SoundCloud, Spotify, Radio Public, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode and give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, and until then, no ora mai!